If you want to know how our leaders plan to transform this country, it's not enough to look at the millions of foreigners from the third world that they're importing into the country every year. That's obviously one of the most important parts of what they're doing, and it's clearly deliberate. We have Border Patrol agents literally fist-bumping illegal migrants on camera and cutting the fence for them. But at the same time, it's also important to take a look at the kinds of people the government is expelling from the country. So don't just focus on who they're importing, although that's very important. Look at who they're exporting arbitrarily and by force. And if you do that, you'll learn a lot about the ideologies that our government truly cannot stand. You'll discover what they desperately want to destroy as quickly and completely as they can. So here's a case that tells you everything you need to know on that front. Just a few weeks ago, without any warning, the Biden administration decided to deport the Romica family. They've been living in the state of Tennessee for the past 15 years. This is a family that, unlike the illegal immigrant, drunk drivers, and violent felons that the Biden administration will defend at every opportunity, has not committed any crime. So what did they do? Well, back in 2006, you and Hannah-Laure Romica were living in Germany, and they decided they wanted to homeschool their 5 children because they're Christians, and they were upset about the perverted and satanic books and curriculum that their kids were being forced to read and were being subjected to in schools, which, may sound familiar based on the experiences of lots of parents in this country. But in Germany, homeschooling was not allowed. There's a Nazi-era law in Germany, which is still in effect to this day, that bans homeschooling in the vast majority of cases. So officials in Germany started fining the Romicas for more than what they earn in a year because they were trying to homeschool their kids. Police officers showed up and dragged their kids to school. They threatened to take the children away permanently. So the Romica family had a decision to make, and to protect their children, you and Hannah-Laure Romica fled to the United States back in 2008. Now, initially, an immigration judge approved their request for asylum, but the Obama administration appealed that decision. Ultimately, a federal appeals court told the family that they had to leave the United States and return to Germany. This is a report on what happened. This is from a decade ago. This is back when all this first started. Let's watch that.
The appeals court upheld the Obama administration's refusal of asylum to the Romica family. The Romicas fled Germany in 2008 facing criminal prosecution for homeschooling. They live in Tennessee. In 2010, they were granted political asylum by an immigration judge. But that decision was overturned by the Board of Immigration Appeals last year. And Tuesday, the 3-judge panel of the 6th Circuit issued a unanimous decision against the family. Uwe and Hannah-Laure Romica began homeschooling in Germany because they didn't want their children exposed to things like witchcraft and graphic sex education that are taught in German schools.
Also, there were stories where they were encouraged to ask the devil for help instead of God, and actually the devil would help.
We found out what is in the textbooks. It's exactly the opposite from what the Bible tells us and teaches us, and we wanted to protect them.
So they're good parents, in other words. They're good parents and they care about their kids. Can't have those types around here, can we? Now, after this decision was made to deport the family, and after it was upheld in courts, there was an enormous public outcry, as you might imagine. So the DHS, under the Obama administration, did something unexpected. They allowed the Romicas to stay in this country. In 2013, the feds granted the family something called indefinite deferred action status, and that allowed them to work and to live in the United States without fear of deportation and without any timetable for leaving. So they were, for all intents and purposes, they were free and clear. That was their arrangement for a decade, and during this period, the Romicas had 2 more children, both of whom were born in the United States. But then on September 6th of this year, during a routine check-in, all of this changed. The Romicas learned that their deferred status was coming to an end for some reason. The Biden administration had decided that they were going to terminate that status, and they weren't given a reason. There's no reason for this. They were just told, it's over, you got to leave. And they were told that they had 4 weeks to get German passports and that they'll be deported on October 11th, which is next week. Now, just so you know, because you might be wondering, well, did they do something? Did something happen? No, nobody in the Romica family did anything to trigger this change in the federal government's reasoning. All that's happened is that the Biden administration has decided that they want to end their deferred status out of the blue. Watch.
Their argument was, we've got a well-founded fear of persecution by Germany because we're in this particular social category of homeschoolers.
Kevin Bowden and the Homeschool Legal Defense Association helped the Romaikas fight in court. An appeals court ruled against their asylum. They have not shown that Germany's enforcement of its general school attendance law amounts to persecution against them, the judge wrote.
And they're here with the approval of the U.S. government, but without permanent residency.
Uwe says immigration agents asked him and his family to get German passports ready to self-deport.
We will be faced the same situation, same kind of persecution.
2 of his children are married to American citizens. 2 others were born here. He says the hardest part is not knowing what's next.
Because we don't have any place to live there. I don't have any work to provide for my family over there.
Now, the Romaikas have stayed here since that ruling through an understanding with ICE. They're required to check in with immigration agents every 6 months to a year. Now they say they're working with their attorneys to figure out what's next. John, Robin.
Thank you.
So a federal court ruled a decade ago that this family doesn't technically qualify for asylum, even though they're in a really difficult position. And whether you agree with that ruling or not, it really doesn't matter. Even if we concede for the sake of argument that this family doesn't have a legitimate asylum claim, the fact remains that the Biden administration has spent the last several years refusing to deport millions of illegal aliens who clearly don't have any legitimate basis for asylum. And by the way, I say for the sake of argument, we can concede it. I personally do not concede that, by the way. It's obvious to me that if you flee a country because you're being persecuted for exercising your basic human right to educate your own children, you are in every sense a legitimate asylum seeker. So to me, it's quite obvious that this is a legitimate case of asylum. And especially, in a country where we're told that you're being persecuted if somebody uses a pronoun you don't like in your presence. Well, I think the government coming in and dragging your children away and say, we're going to take your children away permanently if you don't send them to our indoctrination camps to learn Satanism. Yeah, that's a case for asylum. People always say, happy dog, happy life. Well, if that's really the case, you need to be giving your dog Rough Greens. Naturopathic Dr. Dennis Black, the founder of Rough Greens, is focused on improving the health of every dog in America. Little did I know, before I got Rough Greens, dog food is dead food. Everybody knows that nutrition isn't brown, it's green. Well, Rough Greens boost your dog's food back to life. Rough Greens is a supplement that contains all the necessary vitamins, minerals, probiotics, omega oils, digestive enzymes, and antioxidants that your dog needs. You don't have to go out and buy new dog food. You just sprinkle Rough Greens on their food every day. Dog owners everywhere are raving about Rough Greens. It supports healthy joints, improves bad breath, boosts energy levels, and so much more. We are what we eat, and that goes for our dogs, too. Naturopathic Dr. Dennis Black is so confident Rough Greens will improve your dog's health. He's offering my listeners a free Jumpstart trial bag so your dog can try it. A free Jumpstart trial bag can be at your door in just a few business days. Go to roughgreens.com/Matt or call 844-ROUGH-700. That's ruffgreens.com/Matt or call 844-ROUGH-700 today. Well, a company is looking out for you when they actually upgrade your service and don't charge you for it. This is great news for new and current Pure Talk customers. Pure Talk just added data to every plan and includes a mobile hotspot with no price increase whatsoever. If you've considered Pure Talk before but haven't made the switch, take a look again. For just $20 a month, you'll get unlimited talk, text, and now 50% more 5G data, plus their new mobile hotspot. This is why I love Pure Talk. They're veteran-owned and only hire the best customer service team located right here in the great USA. Most families are saving almost $1,000 a year while enjoying the most dependable 5G network in America. Remember, you vote with how you spend your money, so stop supporting woke wireless companies that don't support you. When you go to puretalk.com/Walsh, you'll save an additional 50% off your first month because they actually value you. That's puretalk.com/Walsh. Pure Talk, wireless for Americans by Americans. But the point is that we already open our arms to many illegal immigrants who have no claim to asylum at all. In many cases, we're talking about criminals who came here simply because they want to make more money. And these criminals enjoy total protection under the Biden administration. In fact, Joe Biden himself is on record saying that he wants ICE agents fired if they deport illegal aliens who come here and then get caught drunk driving. Watch.
They go off to school wondering whether when mom comes and picks them up, is she not going to be there because an ICE agent was there to arrest her? Or she takes them to the doctor that she's going to not be there because she is, quote, undocumented, and an ICE agent is going to pick them up.
So how do you change the culture?
You change the culture by saying you're going to get fired. You're fired if, in fact, you do that. You only arrest for the purpose of dealing with a felony that's committed, and I don't count drunk driving as a felony.
He doesn't count it as a felony. I mean, the courts in many cases disagree, but he does. It's just drunk driving. It's just, you're intoxicated, you get behind the wheel of a car, and you could easily kill somebody. Not a big deal. So if you come here from Haiti or El Salvador, and then having broken our laws to enter the country in the first place, you proceed to get completely wasted and endanger American citizens on the road, Joe Biden thinks you shouldn't have to fear deportation. And on top of that, he thinks that any federal agent who even contemplates deporting you should lose their job. But ICE has no problem going after the Romaikas. And none of the ICE officers telling this family that they're about to be deported are worried about getting fired by Joe Biden because they're following orders. This law-abiding, hard-working Christian family is dangerous, apparently, according to the Biden government. We got to get them out. Not the illegal immigrants who come here and they're getting drunk and driving around and killing people. Not them. We need to get this family out. They're lawbreakers because of some technicality with asylum procedure. The family patriarch who works as a piano accompanist at a small private university in Tennessee is a threat somehow. But the drunk drivers who could wipe out your whole family, well, we need to protect them at all costs. That's what they're saying, basically. Now, it's so absurd on its face that you have to conclude that something else is going on here. And what might that be? Well, the other day, one of the many ghouls at the left-wing propaganda outfit Media Matters said the quiet part out loud. Of course, usually it's not worth paying any attention to Media Matters most of the time. They're a partisan, Soros-funded operation that exists to defame and smear their political opponents. That's all they do. But as a window, and also they exist to promote the Daily Wire, and that's the part that we like. But as a window into what the Biden government and their allies are planning, it can be useful to check in on Media Matters and outfits like that every now and again. So with that in mind, here's what one of the Media Matters hacks, who uses the name Ari Drennan, posted the other day on Twitter. Quote, "Hot take, but unless you have a very good reason, homeschooling should be illegal. Too many parents use it to abuse their children, keeping them ignorant and easy to control." Now, Drennan was responding to a video of a child pointing out that Joe Biden sniffs children and how disgusting that is. Now, of course, any reasonable, well-adjusted child would agree that it's disgusting that this old man sniffs children, but that makes Joe Biden look bad, so Ari Drennan couldn't let it stand. And in the process, the quiet part was uttered out loud, which is this. Many on the left, especially the LGBT left, have hated homeschooling for a long time because they see it as a direct attack on their ability to indoctrinate the next generation of Americans. And by the way, they're right about that. It is a direct attack on their ability to do that. So they want to outlaw homeschooling, just like they did back in Germany in 1938. They'll accuse you of child abuse if you resist their indoctrination. And ultimately, they'll try to take your children away. And then they'll do it on some pretense that, which is actually very funny, that homeschooled children, they're being kept ignorant, they're not being well educated. Meanwhile, the government education system is churning out high school graduates who can barely read, who can't point to their own country on a map. And we're churning these people out every single year by the thousands. But homeschooling, that's the real problem. And that's what this is really about. It's about the agenda against homeschooling. It's hard to imagine another reason why the Biden administration could possibly want to deport the Romaikas. The truth is obvious. They want to take out a symbolic target. White Christians who won't do what they're told, who won't surrender their children to the perverse propaganda that the Biden administration endorses, are the enemy of this regime. And now they're very publicly being shown the door. This is a precursor to what they're planning for the rest of us. It's also, once again, a chance for the Biden administration to humiliate its political enemies. I mean, the Romaikas have 7 children. One of them is married to an American citizen named Trace Bates. And according to the Tennessean, Trace Bates Reading now, quote, Trace Bates was photographed with his brother in crowds at a pro-Trump protest in Washington on January 6, 2021. Trace's brother, Lawson Bates, said on social media that the two attended a pro-Trump event in Washington's Ellipse Park, but were not part of the riot at the U.S. Capitol. So the point is, this family definitely doesn't have the right politics as far as Biden is concerned. Now, if they had torched a Wendy's on behalf of BLM, maybe they could stay. But they like Donald Trump. At least some in the family do. I don't know what all their politics are. And they question the sacred legitimacy of our infallible elections, so they have to go. They have to uproot their lives and move halfway across the world, leaving half of their family in the United States. What's interesting about this is back when the Trump administration tried to end the Obama-era DACA policy, courts ruled that Trump didn't have the authority to do it. Why? Well, because they said all those illegal migrants had come to rely on Barack Obama's decision. So even though what Barack Obama did was illegal, even though DACA was unconstitutional, all of those illegal immigrants had to stay in the country. They were entitled to rely on what Barack Obama promised them. The promise was made, and so the promise had to be kept. That was the logic. But apparently the Romaikas don't get that luxury, even though promises were made to them. Maybe they should have gotten DUIs and voted Democrat if they wanted to stay here. Then probably would have changed things. It's hard to see exactly what happens next in the Romaikas case. Lawmakers in Congress right now are working on legislation that might let them stay in this country. They're obviously taking this through the court system. So this saga's far from over. But as a sign of where things are going, the implications are pretty clear. These people do not believe you have the right to educate your children. They think that's their job. Not just their job, but their right. They have the right. They have a right to your children. They own your children. That's why the Biden DOJ opened up federal counterterrorism investigations because of parents complaining at school board meetings. It's why Joe Biden's surrogate Terry McAuliffe said infamously, quote, I don't think parents should be telling schools what they should teach. It's why California just tried to pass a law saying parents could lose custody of their kids if they don't affirm their quote unquote gender identity. And it's why now the Biden administration wants to send the Romaikas back to Germany, where they're almost certainly going to be prosecuted, by the way. A few minutes ago I said that we're importing foreigners and anarchy from the third world, but really it's worse than that. We are specifically rewarding thousands of Haitians and Guatemalans and Africans who endanger their own children in their effort to cross the border, rewarding them. And at the same time, we're exporting hardworking white Christians who care more about their children than anything else in the world. Wrong politics, wrong race, so they have to go. We are governed by politicians who hate children as much as they want to control them. And whatever happens to the Romaikas, that's all very clear. And like the Romaikas, we really have only one choice in response to this, which is to disobey. Whatever the consequences, the alternative, surrendering our children to these scumbags, is much worse. If you'd like to see what else I have to say, you can access my full show by going to dailywire.com or by going to the Matt Walsh Show Twitter page. Hope to see you there. Godspeed.